So welcome to everyone to our Bhagavad-gītā class. Nice that all of you are here. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Let us offer our most humble obeisances at the lotus feet of Srila Krishna's Vaipāyan Vyasadeva, at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Kṛṣṇa, and his eternal associates, beginning with Arjuna. And let us offer our most humble respects to the book, Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, and at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. May they all bless us so that we are able to grasp and accept these wonderful instructions as did Arjuna from Kṛṣṇa. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So we are reading from Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, chapter 11, verse 41 and 42. We will do the first verse together and then to save a little time, I will do alone the second verse, 42. Sakheti,
Sakheti,
matvā,
prasabhaṁ,
prasabhaṁ,
yad, uktam,
uktam,
sakheti matvā prasabhaṁ jaduktam.
sakheti matvā prasabhaṁ
uktam.
He Kṛṣṇa, ye Yādava, he sakheti, he Kṛṣṇa, he Yādava, he sakheti,
He Kṛṣṇa, he Yādava, he sakheti,
ajānatā,
ajānatā,
mahimānaṁ,
mahimānaṁ,
tavedaṁ,
tavedaṁ,
ajānatā mahimānaṁ tavedaṁ.
ajānatā, mahimānaṁ, tavedaṁ,
Mayā
mayā,
pramādāt,
pramādāt,
praṇayena, vāpi,
vāpi.
mayā pramādāt, praṇayena vāpi.
mayā pramādāt,
praṇayena vāpi.
So I will read the second verse alone so that we can go fast. Cāvahāsārtham asatkṛtosi vihāra-śayyāsana-bhojaneṣu ekoti-vāpyacyuta tat-samakṣam kṣāmaye tvām aham aprameyam. So let's do this first verse together. Sakheti matvā prasabhaṁ uktam.
Sakheti matvā prasabhaṁ uktam.
He Kṛṣṇa, he Yādava, he sakheti.
He Kṛṣṇa, he
Yādava, he sakheti.
Ajānatā mahimānaṁ tavedaṁ.
ajānatā,
mahimānaṁ tavedaṁ.
Mayā pramādāt praṇayena vāpi.
mayā
Mayā
pramādāt,
praṇayena vāpi.
Sakheti matvā prasabhaṁ jaduktam.
sakheti
Sakheti matvā prasabhaṁ uktam.
He Krishna, He Yādava, He sakheti.
हे कृष्ण हे
He
यादव
Krishna,
हे
He
सखेति
Yādava, He sakheti.
Ajānatā mahimānaṁ tavedaṁ.
अजानता महिमानं
Ajānatā
तवेदं
mahimānaṁ tavedaṁ.
Maya pramādāt praṇayena vāpi.
मया
Maya
प्रमादात् प्रणयेन
pramādāt
वापि
praṇayena vāpi.
Sakheti matvā prasabhaṁ yaduktam.
सखेति मत्वा
Sakheti
प्रसभं
matvā
यद
prasabhaṁ
उक्तम्
uktam.
He Krishna, He Yādava, He sakheti.
हे कृष्ण हे
He
यादव हे
Krishna,
सखेति
He sakheti.
Ajānatā mahimānaṁ tavedaṁ.
अजानता
Ajānatā
महिमानं तवेदम्
mahimānaṁ tavedaṁ.
Maya pramādāt praṇayena vāpi.
मया
Maya
प्रमादात्
pramādāt
प्रणयेन वापि
praṇayena vāpi.
Yat-cāvahāsārtham asatkṛtosi vihāra-śayyāsana-bhojaneṣu eko thavāpy tat-samakṣam kṣāmaye tvām aham aprameyam. So please read.
sakhā, friend, iti thus, matvā thinking, prasabhaṁ temporary, yet whatever, uktam said, Hey Krishna, O Krishna, Hey Yadav, O Yadav, Hey sakhā iti, O my dear friend, ajānatā without knowing, mahimānam glories, tava your, idam this, maya by me, pramādāt out of foolishness, praṇayena out of love, vāpi either, yat whatever, cha also, cāvahāsārtham for joking, asatkṛto dishonor, asi had been done, vihāra in relaxation, sayyā in joking, asan in resting place, bhojaneṣu or while eating together, eka alone, athava or api others, acyut O infallible one, tat-samakṣam as your competitor, tat all those, kṣāmaye excuse, tvām you, aham I, aprameyam immeasurable. Translation: I have in the past addressed you as O Kṛṣṇa, O Yadav, O my friend, without knowing your glories. Please forgive whatever I may have done in madness or in love. I have dishonored you many times while relaxing or while lying on the same bed or eating together, sometimes alone and sometimes in front of many friends. Please excuse me for all my offenses. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Although Kṛṣṇa is manifested before Arjun in his universal form, Arjun remembers his friendly relationship with Kṛṣṇa and is therefore asking pardon and requesting him to excuse him for the many informal gestures which arise out of friendship. He is admitting that formerly he did not know that Kṛṣṇa could assume such a universal form. Although he explained it as his intimate friend, Arjun did not know how many times he may have dishonored him by addressing him as O my friend, O Kṛṣṇa, O Yadav, etc., without acknowledging his opulence. But Kṛṣṇa is so kind and merciful that in spite of such opulence, he played with Arjun as a friend. Such is the transcendental loving reciprocation between the devotee and the Lord. The relationship between the living entity and Kṛṣṇa is fixed eternally. It cannot be forgotten. As we can see from the behavior of Arjun, although Arjun has seen the opulence in the universal form, he could not forget his friendly relationship with Kṛṣṇa.
Sakheti matvā prasabhaṁ yaduktam. He Krishna, He Yādava, He sakheti. ajānatā mahimānaṁ tavedaṁ mayā pramādāt praṇayena vāpi yat cāvahāsārtham asatkṛtosi vihāra-śayyāsana-bhojaneṣu eko thavāpy acyuta tat-samakṣam kṣāmaye tvām aham aprameyam. I have in the past addressed you as, O Kṛṣṇa, O Yādava, O my friend, without knowing your glories. Please forgive whatever I may have done in madness or in love. I have dishonored you many times while relaxing or while lying on the same bed or eating together, sometimes alone and sometimes in front of many friends. Please excuse me for all my offenses. So suddenly, Arjuna becomes aware by seeing the Lord's universal form. He becomes aware of the Lord's infinite opulence. However, even the Arjuna, after seeing the universal form, realizes that Kṛṣṇa is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full of all opulences. But still, as Srila Prabhupada points out, never forgot their friendship. Never forgot. And not only did he forget their friendship, did Arjuna forget his friend? No. Kṛṣṇa always reminded him in two specific places in his giving instructions to Arjuna, the instructing of the Bhagavad-gītā. Twice he refers to him as sakhā. Oh, my friend, I'm revealing this most confidential knowledge because you're my good friend, eternal friend, and my devotee. So, Arjuna suddenly remembers. That means that one has to be in the level of bhāv to remember the intimate relationship with Kṛṣṇa in spite of a sudden attack, let us say, of opulence and majesty in the relationship. Suddenly Arjuna became aware of Kṛṣṇa's majesty and opulence. And this majesty and opulence is sometimes a hindrance to the free flow of spontaneous friendship, free flow of love. Arjuna and Kṛṣṇa were very close friends, but their friendship was in the mood of Dvaraka. In the mood of Dvaraka, were Kṛṣṇa and Arjuna very friendly to each other. Because in Dvaraka, Kṛṣṇa is a Kshatriya. Therefore, he has this chivalrous attitude of a Kshatriya. And yet the fact is Arjuna becomes more convinced that he had taken so many things about Kṛṣṇa for granted. He was thinking, I've taken my friendship with Kṛṣṇa for granted. And now that I have seen his universal form, he's not an ordinary living entity. He's not an ordinary human being. Although he has offered me his friendship, he's not ordinary. He's full of opulence and majesty. Hmm. So, this feeling of opulence and majesty is always present in Dwaraka, because although Ugrasena is the actual king of the Yādavas, but he was very, very old. And therefore, he could not be at the helm of affairs in Dwaraka, which needed a strong hand, because Dwaraka was equal in opulence with Hastinapur. Hastinapur was at that time the capital of the emperor of the entire planet. Dhritarashtra was ruling as the emperor of the entire planet. But Dwaraka was an independent kingdom ruled by Ugrasena and the Yādavas. The Yādavas were very powerful. So we know from Mahabharata that Sakuni wanted a matrimonial alliance with the Yādavas so as to strengthen their position as the emperor, and also ensure that the Yādavas never attacked Hastinapur. Because if they did, then both Balaram and Kṛṣṇa would be on their side, the Yādava side, and they would have no chance really. With Balaram, Kṛṣṇa and the Pandavas, they would be completely indefeatable. So Sakuni made a plan to have Subhadra marry Duryodhana. Anyway, it never worked out because Kṛṣṇa never allowed it to happen. So Arjuna was a sakhā in Dwaraka. So he had this mood of opulence and majesty in his relationship as friend with Kṛṣṇa. But yet, in friendship, there is no hierarchy. Who is greater, who is lower? They're all on equal terms. That is the meaning of friendship. So, Arjuna actually was quite in order according to etiquette, because Arjuna and Kṛṣṇa were more or less same age. Bhima was elder, and Yudhishthir was still elder from the Pandavas. So there was a natural friendship amongst boys of equal ages. But now, after seeing the universal form, Arjuna realized what have been done, what have we been doing. I was taking all these things for granted, and now I see everything in the right perspective. And therefore, Arjuna says, I'm begging forgiveness because I have taken all these for granted. But you, a very elevated soul, he's telling Dhritarashtra how elevated the Pandavas are, and therefore the alliance should take place. and before any further move can be made, because the plan was constantly by Duryodhana to become the next king. Then we shall read again further in the Mahabharata. Anyhow, that couldn't work out. So Arjuna was not at all at fault for behaving with Kṛṣṇa on such equal terms. And Kṛṣṇa liked it. So much so, if one reads the description of Kṛṣṇa when he agreed to become the charioteer of Arjuna, he did everything. Every day he would harness the horses right in the morning, feed them, graze them, and give them a thorough wash to keep them fit. Kṛṣṇa, of course, knew the language of the horses, so he could communicate with them. So Arjuna was seeing all this, and he never objected. After all, it was Kṛṣṇa's desire. And since they were friends, so amongst friends, there's no such thing. They were both all equal. So even at that, during the war, Arjuna saw how Kṛṣṇa was taking full care of the horses and following his orders. When he said go right, so he went right. When go left, he went left. So he was following all the orders of Arjuna. And Arjuna never thought that something was amiss, that he in some way or any way might have transgressed the etiquette. But after seeing the universal form, he realized, oh, Kṛṣṇa is the Supreme Lord. So the show of universal form, like all of Kṛṣṇa's Leela, all of Kṛṣṇa's pastime, and throws up or exhibits so many different aspects of relationship, of different position, all this. And so the universal form had this one effect, that it made Arjuna become aware who Kṛṣṇa was, because that was lacking in his Sambandha Gyan. All devotees, be the devotee a sakhā or a servant or parents, ultimately everyone is a servant of the Lord, servitor of the Lord. And the position of a servant, one has to render service to the Lord. So when Arjuna realized that I must have done something terribly wrong to not have remembered all this. But Sri Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is writing that although Arjuna was feeling some remorse by having acted not in the proper manner, he was actually not at all at fault. Arjuna was not at all at fault. Rather, he acted as is proper, also as friend. And if Kṛṣṇa wanted that Arjuna should not be so intimate with him, then from the beginning Kṛṣṇa would have made it clear by showing Arjuna his universal form. But he didn't do that because he wanted an intimate relationship with Kṛṣṇa. And none of the other his Pandava brothers had this relationship. They did not know of this. So, and he's been referred to here as acyuta. Oh, infallible one, acyuta. But it has other meanings too. Even though Arjuna is telling, oh Kṛṣṇa, even though you have shown your universal form and naturally do possess it, you're still acyuta, you're infallible, you remain in your position. And that position is my friend. You maintain that position of friendship because you're acyuta, you're infallible. You do not deviate in the slightest from your position. So he refers to him as acyuta also. In this way, Arjuna is saying that you please forgive my offenses. My offenses, not sins. There's a big difference. Arjuna was not a sinner. He was not sinning by acting a friend, because after all, Kṛṣṇa demanded that he be friends with him from the very beginning, when they first met. From that time. So, question, answer, time.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
What is the difference between pāp and anartha?
No. Anartha is anything which is unwanted. And it's not just pāp. Punya is also anartha. Offense is also anartha. Anartha means unwanted contamination, undesirable.
Pāp can be an obstacle.
And pāp is acting against the injunctions of the scripture. That is pāp.
So both pāp and anartha can be an obstacle in surrendering to Kṛṣṇa?
You can't say that pāp, there are 4 types of anarthas. Pāp is only one of them. So, anartha itself is detrimental. Pāp is just one of them. So it's not either or. Anarthas, all the 4 anarthas are hindrances in developing love of Godhead. Hindrances. But they can be got rid of also.
Srila Prabhupada, in one place he writes that pāp doesn't allow a person to surrender to Kṛṣṇa. He specifically used the word pāp. So, how, in the light of anartha, what should I understand from this?
It's a fact. If you are committing sinful activities, how can you surrender? Because sinful activity means to be under the control of the false ego. And therefore you act against the injunctions of the scriptures. So you're acting on the behest of your false ego and not of the scriptures. So how can you surrender? You're defiant.
One more question that if one who knows the transcendental nature of a pure devotee's appearance, his activities, does that help in the same way as we have learned from Janma Karma Cha Divyam? It is the same. It can be helpful in not taking the birth again?
Certainly. Only if one has this realization that a pure devotee does not appear due to any karmic reaction, and that is all his activities on the transcendental spiritual plane, then he is certainly to become a candidate to beget liberation. Kṛṣṇa will give him.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Hari Bol.
Hare Bol. So you just said that pap is only one type of anatta. Which one of the four is it? Is it this running after temporary material things? Is this pap?
No, there are two different. See, one is gross anarthas, and there are the subtle anarthas. So Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur talks about both of them. Amongst the gross anarthas, those anarthas are unwanted material contamination, which are a result of sinful activities, pāputta, also a result of pious activities, also anartha. And then there's this anarthas which arise out of executing bhakti improperly. And the fourth anartha is aparadha. And of all the aparadhas, nama aparadha. And of all the nama aparadhas, it is the aparadha of a Vaishnava, especially the spiritual master, to offend the spiritual master or a Vaishnava. These come into the category of sadhu ninda. That anartha remains even in the stage of bhav. We have spoken of this. Only when one develops prema, then the devotee becomes completely free from anarthas, not even a slight tinge remains in his consciousness and state of mind. Only when one develops prema, it's gone, everything is gone, even the offenses. So the four offenses that you're speaking of, are four anarthas you're speaking of, and here's the two of the first two together. Pāp-uttita, and punya-uttita. Anarthas which arise out of sinful activities and out of pious activities. These together form the four anarthas, that is sarubham, asatkṛto, hridaya-daurvalyam, and aparad or avidya. So one has to get, you see, if one has got rid of the first two, then the devotee finds himself or herself in nishtha, in the stage of nishtha. And nishtha is then becomes very fixed and strong, unwavering. When in nishtha, the five hindrances are removed, then it becomes very firm. At that time, that person, that candidate is, the devotee is a candidate for liberation. Liberation. But if somebody wants to go further into spontaneous love, then something else.
So this means, Gurudev, that Pāp it has its origin in the subtle anarthas, right?
Pāp has its origin in avidya, ignorance.
Mm. And it's being expressed in the subtle anarthas.
What do you mean by subtle anarthas?
No,
the Pāp and punya, no, Pāp and punya, they are both in the gross, not in the subtle.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
In the subtle, there's improper execution of bhakti and offense. These two comprise the subtle anarthas. And the gross anarthas are these two, Pāp and punya. And right after one takes initiation, under the guidance of the spiritual master, one begins his spiritual life, then this thing happens. The purification of the consciousness of these four types of gross anarthas. Four types of gross anarthas.
Yes, thank you, Gurudev. And I want to ask, who is Arjuna in the spiritual world?
There are two Arjunas. There's also another Arjuna who is a eternal sakhā in Golok Vrindavan. But Arjuna, as I said, he's in Dwaraka. Also the spiritual world.
So this means that Arjuna, as we hear from him now, from this verse, is eternally situated in the mood of awe and reverence toward Kṛṣṇa.
Yes. If the universal form was shown also to Mother Yashoda, but she didn't care. She never started praying to Kṛṣṇa, oh Kṛṣṇa, you are, hey Yādava, hey Kṛṣṇa, hey acyuta. I have done so much. I tried to beat you. I tried to bind you. Please forgive me. Nothing like that. But she saw the universal form in the mouth of Kṛṣṇa. Two completely different reactions due to the two completely different levels of bhakti and rasa.
But still, he is in Sakhya ras in
Yes.
in Dwaraka.
All the rasas are there in Dwaraka. Kṛṣṇa, wherever Kṛṣṇa is there, all the rasas are there. But they're all influenced by awe and reverence. The Sakhya is awe and reverential. The Vatsalya of Devaki and Vasudeva is also reverential. The queens of Dwaraka and the conjugal affection, they are also toned with opulence and awe and reverence. And in Dwaraka and Mathura, everyone, in whichever different rasas and relationship they might find themselves in, interacting with Kṛṣṇa, they are all actually in the mood of servitorship. Even the queens, they are Kṛṣṇa's servitor. Uddhav is a very big, very, very intimate friend. He is also in the mood of a servitor. So Arjuna also is in the mood of the servitor.
And Gurudev, how to understand that Arjuna has plays such an important role in revealing this knowledge, and is also so dear to Kṛṣṇa, as we always hear. How comes that he is not in the highest spiritual sphere connected to Kṛṣṇa?
Well, that is his mood. He loves that. He prefers that. After all, Kṛṣṇa reciprocates. Kṛṣṇa doesn't encourage somebody to become something different. Kṛṣṇa is ready to reciprocate in whatever mood, in whatever mood of devotion one has. That is not Kṛṣṇa's business. Kṛṣṇa's business is to reciprocate, which he does. Kṛṣṇa is not going to go out of his way to try and change somebody's mood of devotion. Otherwise, what is the use of having free will if I'm not allowed to express my love and devotion the way I want?
Yes, thank you, Gurudev. And I have another question. So we learn that Kṛṣṇa is more satisfied when we worship his devotees instead of him. So how is it with Guru? Is Guru also more pleased if we glorify his spiritual master instead of him?
No. The Guru is certainly very pleased when his spiritual master is glorified. But the spiritual master of the Guru is more satisfied when the disciples glorify their spiritual master. So my guru is serving his guru to please him. So that my guru service to my param guru, grand guru, is with the intention of pleasing him and giving him happiness. So now, if the disciple, if Srila Prabhupada was to glorify Gaur Kishore Das Babaji all the time, that will not please Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. It please him much more. Of course, we have to glorify all the Vaishnavas. That, having said that, there's a specific, and not only does the spiritual master more pleased when we glorify our spiritual master, but Kṛṣṇa is also more pleased. So both these personalities are pleased if we glorify our own spiritual master. Therefore, the focus should be to glorify our own spiritual master. And the other point is that we've never met our Param Gurudev. We never met him. So on what basis? So Prabhupada, sometimes when the devotees were there, and he was in a very personal and intimate mood, a few devotees, he would thank all his disciples and say that you have all been sent by my Gurudev, my Guru Maharaj has sent you all to assist me in serving my Gurudev. So the service which has to be rendered is to the Gurudev, but via media, our own spiritual master. We have to develop a very strong faith, a very intimate trust with my spiritual master. Only then there is success, because my spiritual master is the embodiment of Krishna's compassion and mercy. And it is Kṛṣṇa who has sent my spiritual master from the spiritual world down here. And it is Paramatma, Kṛṣṇa, who has brought me to the lotus feet of that personality who has been sent down from the spiritual world to be amongst us. So in every way, it is our first and foremost duty to glorify and serve my own spiritual master before everything else. And we cannot take the freedom to make decisions like this. If the spiritual master tells me, yes, you praise, you glorify my spiritual master, then we must do it. But otherwise, Kṛṣṇa is not pleased if we don't glorify that personality who he has personally sent down to us.
Gurudev, recently you said that we, as Kanishta Adhikaris, we have to establish the relationship to Guru. Since the Kanishta does not realize the superior position of the Guru. This is very important. So my question is, when is this relationship to the spiritual master established?
Well, it is already established on the side of the spiritual master. Now it needs to be reciprocated from the side of the disciple. Already it has been established. Of the two participants in this relationship, one participant, the spiritual master, already knows and is aware of that. And the other, due to ignorance, will take some time. But ultimately, the disciple will also come to the conclusion, come to the proper conclusion.
So there's this verse with these three activities that a sincere devotee is actually performing towards a spiritual master. Are these the signs of an established relationship, or what are the signs?
What three relations?
This verse, pranipatena,
Okay.
sevaya.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is actually the beginning. Actually, the beginning. When you approach, Kṛṣṇa is saying one should approach tat-vidhi. Tat-vidhi means to know the absolute truth, tat-vidhi. It means that the disciple approaching the spiritual master has not yet realized in the absolute truth. Therefore, he is approaching tat-vidhi, to know that. Pranipatena pariprashnita sivaya. So these three is the very beginning, at the outset. One should be practicing these three things. Very outset. And then, as everything matures, then all these three will also be intact and in place and has to be practiced, but becomes more intense. That's all. Pranipatena. Yeah. Here, the word pranipatena refers to the body falling flat like a rod. Pranipatena. Pariprashnena. Prashna means questions. To ask relevant questions. So, in the beginning, the disciple does not know properly what is sambandha gyan. Therefore, his questionings and his seva doesn't take place. The desire to offer service to spiritual master is already out of some realization. In the beginning, the neophyte, the Kṛṣṇa. Here Krishna is talking about the Kṛṣṇa. The Kṛṣṇa is a prakrita bhakta. Prakrita bhakta means one who doesn't have proper sambandha gyan. Kṛṣṇa. So Kṛṣṇa doesn't really understand who is the guru. What is his position?
Hare Krishna, can I ask a question?
Hare.
If anyone else asks, then I will ask later.
Thank you, Gurudev. Please
Hare.
go ahead, Bala.
Thank you. My question is that how come both pāp and punya are an impediment in spiritual progress in the same measure, or they being put in the same bracket, considering that punya is a sattvic activity?
Yeah. Yeah, it is true. It's sattvic activity, but it is also binding. It's binding. Karma. So you're still under the influence of the three modes of material nature. And as long as in the three modes of material nature influence, you cannot render pure devotional service. Because your consciousness is still contaminated, and all your actions, all your thoughts, all your words will be influenced by the guna. Even if you're in sattva guna, it will influence you. So, punya, pious activities, does not make you eligible for liberation, because you have to experience the result of your pious activities. Therefore, they have been bracketed in the same position. Because both are binding, both have karmic reactions.
But pāp is more corrosive in the sense that it really deviates you from the true path, whereas there is a possibility that sattvic activity, that is punya, can take you towards Suddha Sattva, isn't it?
Well, the possibility is there, but until and unless it manifests, it's still not going to help you. If punya is detrimental because you are elevated to the heavenly planets to enjoy. So when you're in the enjoying spirit, mood of enjoyment, where is the question of surrender?
Yeah, and both has entanglement, but the sinful activity, that is pāp, is totally away from any Visuddha Sattva, far away.
So is punya. gives the impression that it is very near, but it is still far away. In fact, suffering is a better medicine, a better cure for our material disease than sense gratification and sense enjoyment.
So one can conclude that punya is rather more dangerous than past.
Yes, because you can become by performing punya, you forget Kṛṣṇa. But by performing sinful activities, due to intense suffering, you tend to remember Kṛṣṇa, at least seek for help.
So which path one should choose if there is an option?
Depending on what you want. If you want bhakti, then reject both the paths. If you want material happiness, then choose punya. And if you want to live irresponsibly, then you're forced to act vāpi, enact vāpi.
Thank you, Prabhu.
So when Kṛṣṇa so desires, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada blesses us, we shall get to hear Harikatha very soon again. Oh, and I thank all of you for your patient hearing, and I beg for forgiveness for the mistakes that I may have committed. Let us now offer a most humble obeisance at the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa Dvaipayan Srila Vyasadeva, at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Kṛṣṇa and his eternal associates beginning with Arjuna. Let us also offer our most humble respects to the book Sri Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, and our most humble obeisance at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. Hare Kṛṣṇa, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.